I guess by looking at me and what I'm doing here now and the way I'm dressed, you probably wouldn't have guessed that as of July last year and before that, I was a lawyer, and I was a practicing lawyer for 3 years. During this time, I was a pretty good guy. I tried to limit my drinking, so I would only drink water, and I'd drink alcohol one night a week, in which I get absolutely fucked. But for the rest of the time, I was a very good boy, and I worked, and that kept me busy, and it was fine. But then one day, I thought, fuck this, and I quit. And I decided that I was going to run away and go overseas. The bad thing about this is I'd never been exposed to copious amounts of saved money and time before. So basically what I started to do is I went to festivals, I got drunk too much. I didn't sleep, and my body just broke down into a heap. And it got to the point where I was like, you know what, Michael? You need to do something about this, you're a wreck. So what I did is I did what any usual person would do, is I went to the chemist and I bought some detox pills, because pills fix everything. So I was taking these pills, and you had to take 2 a day for 2 weeks. In the end I took 4, and then I was like, a friend called me up and was like, Michael, want to go out? And I was like, fuck yeah. So then I just plummeted down, until one day I was sitting drinking a coffee, and I remembered a friend who told me about this thing called Vipassana meditation. But what they actually said wasn't Vipassana meditation, it was a silence retreat, which, if you can hear those words, sounds pretty fun. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to look into this, and I'm going to do it, and it will be great, and it will fix me. So I went on the website, and in big letters were, do not do this to detox, this is a deep spiritual exercise. And I thought, that's exactly what I thought. I thought, I don't need to listen to you website, I'm doing this my way. So I ignored it, I didn't do any of the required reading that they told you to do, which in the end I really should have. So a few weeks later I arrived at this little camp, and I realised I was in way too deep. Just way too deep. I got there, they were talking about spiritualism, they were talking about beauty of life and energies, and I was like, oh fuck, I just want to stop drinking, and you guys are going to make me do this. And what I also didn't realise is what the word silence retreat meant. It meant for 10 days I was locked, I was woken up at 4 a.m, and I was told to go to bed at 10 a.m, and for 12 hours of those 10 days, I had to meditate in complete silence. Not only that, I was never allowed to talk, I was never allowed to move my arms, and you weren't even allowed to look someone in the eyes, which really pissed me off, because people would like open a door for you and you can't go, hey thanks, you just have to ignore them completely, like nothing even happened, and I'm quite nice, and I wanted to say thank you. So I didn't realise how much I needed to be able to speak and move. So that night went to bed, and day 1 happened, day 2 happened, and day 3 happened. And I was fucking loving it. I had learnt so much about myself, I was spiritual, it was beautiful. And I realised, because on day 1, what the people had said is that after the big spiritual thing, they got someone to volunteer to hit the gong. And I was like, cool, that sounds like a fun job. And I liked it for the first couple of days. Then day 4 happened. Fuck that guy. I want to go to bed. Because on day 4, I cracked. Because on day 4, for all day, I had Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba running through my head. Like, it did not end. And that's when I went fucking titchy. So that was fine, and I was trying to just, my only concentration wasn't like beauty, energy, relaxation, finding myself, vibrations. It was like, fuck, Chumbawamba. So I got through that day, and then day 5 happened. On day 5, 5, I was similarly broken. That was the day that I decided to start making characters for every single person that was sitting around me. See, what had happened is we'd been divided up into girls who sat on one side and boys who sat on the other side, and we're all giving a little placemat and one cushion that we're allowed to sit on, which I didn't think was enough cushions. So I'm sitting there, not being able to concentrate, all these other fucking hippies are around me, just loving it and finding these things, and I'm just looking at them going, what are you getting out of this that I can't? So I just started making up characters for people. So there was a guy who was 2 in front of me and 3 to the left, and he had kind of a crew cut, and those pants that are from the 90s that have 2 lines down the side that you can kind of rip off. So I decided that he was a soccer player who had punched a guy on the field, and his punishment was to go to some sort of counselling to help him relax, and he'd chosen this, and I'd created this voice for him which was like, "Oi, fuck you," and like a really angry guy, and that was my day. Day 5 or 6 then happened. As I said, there was this girl-guy segregation, and as you can imagine in polite society, you mingle with the opposite sex, and there's always a bit of sexual tension there, but when you're not allowed to talk or look at the other sex, and they're just over there, it starts to get a little bit much. And what happened is you're allowed to go in the walking area. There was like a little walking area that you're allowed to go in. And what I didn't also mention is you're not allowed to run or really move at all. So you're only allowed to walk at a very slow pace. And again, I'm looking at all these people who are just walking just one step in front of the other and just looking and going, what are you getting out of this? And then out of the corner of my eye, past the fence that said no boys allowed past this point, I saw this girl just walking about as fast as you can walk without running. And I was like, yep, you're my girl in this. You are exactly where I am. And I was like, after day 10, I'm going to find you and we're just going to be like, fuck you guys. That's all I wanted. Yeah, so then the next day, day 8, occurred. And each day just got a little bit harder. At 4 a.m. And this was the day that I decided, you know what, I'm going to escape. I'm running away from this place, and you can't keep me here. I am gone. So I went up and I got to the back fence and I just sat on it and I looked around because I didn't want to get caught because that would have been naughty. And I looked around and there was no one there, and I thought, I just jumped. So I jumped off the fence and I was outside the boundary, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. So then I walked outside the boundary, and then there was another fence, but it was like a hedge fence, and I was like, well, I'll just climb through the hedge fence and it'll be great. So I climbed through. What I didn't realise is in between the hedge fence there was a barbed wire and some sort of rose thorn type thing. So I get halfway in and then I realised I'm stuck. And I'm like, oh shit, so I'm looking around, making sure no one can see me, trying to get out, and I thought, alright, this is a sign. I get it, fence. I'll go back, I'll learn about myself. That same day, I went back and there was this girl who I like to call Sassy Black Chick. She was this wicked British black girl who just sat there the entire time just going, oh, fuck this. And I would always look at her and be like, yeah, and look at everyone else being like, come on guys, are you with me here? And no one would look at her, and I was like, come on, this is hilarious. What she did, I love Sassy Black Chick, what she did is, as I said, we're allowed one cushion and potentially one blanket. What she did is she gathered around 30 cushions and about half the blankets and made a throne up against the back wall. And I'm not using the word throne as like a throwaway word. She had armrests and a big back that she would just lie against, just going, ugh. And she was the other girl that I was like, oh, I love you, Sassy Black Chick, I can't wait to meet you. So then day 9 happened, and by this time I'm mental. I'm, fuck you! I just hated that guy so much, and I slept in. A cat came into my room and I couldn't tell anyone about it because I can't talk. I was like, there's this cat in my bed and I can't do anything about it. So then this is the slowest day of my life. Like, I'm just watching the clock slowly tick, and it was like on a movie, and it was just getting slower and slower and slower until lunchtime, when a little sign came up and said, tomorrow at 12, your noble silence, because that's what they call this shit, is lifted. Fuck yeah. Day 10. I am just loving it. I'm just going, boom, 12 o'clock, it's done. So we get in there, we're meditating. I'm not really. And I'm sitting there, and what happens is the guy goes, it finishes, he does his little frog chant, and then says, "Your noble silence is lifted." And I stand up. I jump up. I'm just like, and look at everyone. And no one moves. There's 170 people there, and no one moves. And so I sat down again. And I sat there for like 10 or 15 minutes while people slowly got out of their spiritual haze and walked outside. And I was like, oh well. And I chose the most appropriate time to go out. And I opened the door out of the little meditation hall and I just went, "Ah!" Which they thought I was a weirdo. And I was like, come on guys. So then what I did is I made it my thing to go find all the people that I'd find. So I went and I found Soccer Guy, and I went up to him and I was like, "Hey Soccer Guy," and he looked at me like, what's wrong with you? And he was so lovely. He was like, "Oh hello, how are you?" And I was like, "I thought you were this angry soccer man." And then he got so sad. He looked like he was gonna cry. And then I found the running girl and I was like, "Oh, I'll find you later." And then I looked for Sassy Black Chick because she was who I wanted to talk to, and she had left 2 hours before the end. Just in this fuck you to Vipassana meditation. I did 9 days and 22 hours and then I'm just out. So then, at the end, I found and we were just broken. Like it was just awful. And I talked to her and she was in the same room as Sassy Black Chick. And I was like, "Where did Sassy Black Chick go?" And she was like, "She left." At night, what she'd done is she'd snuck in a boombox, cigarettes and alcohol and was blasting hip-hop until like 1 a.m. and just drinking and chain smoking. And I was like, ah. So then, that day, at 8 a.m, me and the running girl took a taxi to the nearest Wetherspoons pub. And we're sitting there at 8 a.m, she's smoking a cigarette, and we had to wait for half an hour till 8:30 till they were legally allowed to serve us. And I just found that all I learned in that whole time was just that drinking was fine.